This is the Lyndsay Stafford Show.
All right, welcome back to the Lyndsay Stafford Show. We are featuring local legends here in Middle Tennessee, and I am really excited for my guests today. I have John and Josh with Stellen Eoin. They are local business owners that are builders, and not only do they just build, they build in a way that gets your mission accomplished with the build. So they keep what you want in mind, and I can't say that I've ever met anyone that does it quite like they do. So I'm very excited to have them here. And they've got some interesting background, some interesting stories, some good tips and tricks for you. So, and they also have their own podcast. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But John and Josh, I'm so excited to have you guys here. And I'd love for you guys to just kind of start and share a little bit about what you do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us. I'm Josh, and this is John. So John was the founder of the company, and I'm currently sitting in the CEO position. And our passion is people and building. So I like to say that we serve our community through building, and just being able to help our community and serve our community is one of the best things that we get to do. John is, he started this business 10-ish years ago.
Close to 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just, I've never met anyone that was so passionate, not only how everything is built to a high quality and a high standard, but the person's experience that has hired him to do it. So, you want to speak more into?
Sure. I think the quality has set us apart for a long time. I enjoy complex and difficult projects. So that's something that, has given me a lot of fun along the way as well. But yeah, I would say the client experience is definitely a very passionate part of our company. We want people to know that we are building for them, and we're not happy until they are. And I think people they experience that level of service, and we have for years gotten, a lot of referrals. We have a very strong customer base here in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, the quality is something that stands out, and it's also just the integrity of the company. I have had the pleasure, this is not our first time meeting, so I've had the pleasure of getting to know both of you, the best I can without growing up with you, I think. And you guys the way you operate is just, it's very different. So I'll share a couple of things that we can kind of dig into. One is, we've had a conversation recently about when you make a mistake, it's going to happen. Every business makes mistakes. It's just, every person does. It's just reality. But how do you guys approach that? And talk to us about your philosophy in that. Because building, so many things can go wrong, accidental, of course.
Absolutely. Building is, there's always opportunities for things to go right and wrong. And some things are in our control, some things are not in our control. Sometimes on a renovation project, you might tear something apart and realize that what you're dealing with is not what you expected to deal with. And so we have just we have an atmosphere of high ownership. So we're going to own the project like we're building it for ourselves with keeping our client in mind. But if we make a mistake, not only do we want to own it and resolve it, we want to own it fast and resolve it fast, because small issues can maintain small issues as long as you own them and don't let them grow. So we want to make sure that if it's our mistake, we own it, we will pay for whatever resolution, and we make sure that the client's happy with whatever that end result is. And I've found that sometimes mistakes are great trust building opportunities for between the client and the contractor.
Sure.
I think it's also how we approach it. So if you mentioned renovations, and we do some really, large, high-end renovations, residential and commercial, and almost regardless of what project type it is, if it's a renovation, you're going to open a wall up and there's going to be a surprise waiting for you. And it's more how we approach the issues, I think, that sets us apart, and that gives the client a good experience. You can open the walls up, have that shocker, and just keep rolling and make decisions without consulting with the client, and you're not going to have a good end result or a happy client. So what we do is we will either bring the client on site, or we'll uh, send them photos or whatever, the arrangement is, if they're out of town, clients, or whatever the case may be. Prefer them to come on site, and then we will give them options how we can move forward. If it's a major structural concern, it may affect how we approach it. Like, regardless, we will not continue a scope of work until we have a signed change order, so that everyone is on the same page and there's an agreement of how to move forward. And then when it comes to warranty issues, we take warranty issues very seriously. Those, I think, that is where we can really build a strong relationship. It's an opportunity for us to do something for a previous client that's still within our warranty period, to show them who we are, to demonstrate that we truly do stand behind our work and that we deliver a good product. I think that's those are two different scenarios of issues that you may have on a project. And then there's also maybe issues like cultural or relationship type issues that can happen on a project, where a vendor may come on a site and leave a bunch of trash, or not clean things up well, and we take all those things very seriously. So if there's go ahead.
I was going to say, on multiple occasions, John and I have been on site ourselves cleaning up just trash and debris and things that are left. And we always try to set the standard with our vendors that, we don't leave things to this nature.
Yeah.
But with trying new vendors sometimes, or with, they may have a crew that's
A new person.
a new
whatever.
person. There's always going to be things that we think are not to our professional standard, but we're the ones responsible to make sure they go up to that standard. And so, we bridge that gap. So if something's left in a way we don't want it to be left in, we intervene.
Yeah, you're going to fix it. Goes back to the whole Boy Scouts, leave no trace. That's how I grew up. My dad always said, leave no trace. And now I got to make sure the kids know how to leave no trace, but also leave things better than you found them. And you guys, when I think about Stellen Eoin and the two of you and the philosophy behind your business, I mean it when I say I just, haven't seen that caliber, because it's about the integrity. And I want to go back to who you are as people, because we've talked about your business, and I want to talk about the journey of entrepreneurship, but I also want to hear about the foundation, because you both are family focused, very focused on doing the right thing and being fully present where you are. And there's a lot of admirable traits there, but you've been able to build a really successful business while doing it. So can you guys talk through a little bit of that?
Yeah. So I think there needs to be a basis of integrity in your own life, right? So that you know how to treat other people as well. So if you cut corners, that will slowly erode your kind of your business practices. I have a little mantra I like to say: integrity behind the walls. So a lot of issues are hidden by contractors behind drywall. And I think if there's integrity behind the walls, there's integrity in every aspect of the build, both the quality and also the transparency and of your contracts. There needs to be clarity. There needs to be transparency in your contracts. And if you build a business model, and it really doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you build a company around those concepts, you're going to end up successful, because everyone wants to do business with someone like that, right? So it really didn't matter whether I was in construction or what I was doing. I know that people want to do business with me because I will treat them like I want to be treated, as well as, just a high level of quality.
I'm always blown away because I bring on the best people, and it makes me so happy to be able to say that. And my producer, Jim, gets to be there for all of them and see, that's so important to me, that we focus on and feature guests that are going to do the right thing. So tell us a little bit about your perspective.
I mean, I'll kind of give you the how John and I met story, because that speaks a lot into how I got so bought into the company. And so I agree with everything that John says. We have the integrity behind the walls, and our founder statement in the company is we do the right thing. And that is completely from John. So John and I met 4 or 5 years ago now, and
Mm-hmm.
it was in a Lowe's. I was working for a large investor doing some commercial work in Clarksville, and so he was buying 50 bags of thin set, and that is a significant amount of
Yeah.
one product, right? And so I was blown away. So I walked up and I just introduced myself, and basically it was a who are you, right?
Yeah.
And so we get
You are someone.
yeah, right. You're doing something. I'm interested. Who are you? So we exchanged contact info, and I went and looked at some of his work, and then I had him bid out some stuff, and then he quickly became one of my favorite vendors. And so he was.
What made him one of your favorites?
He always showed up when he said he was going to show up. His quality of work was great. It ended up being a vendor I never had to worry about.
Mhm.
And when you're a project manager working for an investor and you have a vendor that you don't have to worry about, that is gold.
Amen.
So there was an instance where I was trying to explain this vendor I was using because this person was looking at building a house, and I was like, let me see if he has a website, and let me show you some of his work. And then I saw his website, and
He's over there
it was so bad. I mean, the person you don't want to hire off to Craigslist, it was like their version of a website. So the next day, John and I were talking, and I was like, John, as a friend, you've got to take that down. It is doing you more harm than good. It doesn't reflect your quality. And that was a pivotal point in our relationship. It changed the nature of our relationship. And so the very next day, he's like, Josh, come work for me. And I said no. I said no to him for about 6 months. And then finally he wore me down. I was just like, I see how he is. I've met his boys. At that point, he only had the 3 boys. He has a beautiful little girl now, but at that point he only had the boys. And he was very involved with his family. He was very involved with, the people in his life. And you could tell that he's not just this entrepreneur that works all the time. There's so much more dimensional elements to him. And he carried himself well. Like we'd have hour-long conversations multiple times. I mean, almost every day for a while. And the more I got to know him, the more I was just like, this is who I want to align my career with. And so I finally said yes, and I came on about 2.5 years ago now. And it was the best career decision I've ever made, because the person that I thought John was is absolutely the person John is. He's dedicated. He loves his family. I've gotten to know his wife and 4 kids, and he's such a good husband and father. I've never seen him different in any point of his life. I've seen him in some of our hardest days. I've seen us on some really huge wins. And I've never seen a different version of John. And so that right there gives me the trust that this is who I want to help grow his company. This is who I want to align myself with. So
Yeah, you see the same person all the time. There is no other side.
mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's very flattering. But
hopefully not flattering, because there's a lot of truth to it. But
I think just why the reason I wanted to hire Josh and bring him into our company was he gave me some really good hard criticism, and we're all about that in our company.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see if you are kind enough to recognize an issue we have or how we can be better, and you show us the kindness of critiquing us, then I might try to hire you. So
Well, you have to put your trust in people that are going to give you the hard feedback.
right.
And I just had another episode. We talked a lot about being humble enough to accept it, but then also taking it and doing something with it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find someone that's comfortable and confident enough to give you the hard feedback, feedback is a gift. That's invaluable. I mean, that's amazing. So, okay, you guys have both shared your story. I want to talk a little bit about the dynamic between the two of you, but for just a minute, because we touched on family. Can we talk about how you managed to do family and the business as 2 very involved dads and husbands?
Yeah. So I would say that's challenging regardless, because a work-life balance is it's an oxymoron. It's impossible. You're either going to put a little bit more emphasis on one and then more on the other. And especially during like kind of a startup. Let me backtrack a little bit. So when I first started the company, I was spending a lot more time in the company than what was sustainable. And you almost need to really have a good startup. Is that healthy long term? No. But I think you need to recognize there are different stages, in a company in the startup stages especially. So then there are seasons, of life as well, and your family's, the kids' ages and everything does affect how much time you need to spend with your family. And of course, I always want to spend as much time with them as possible. But if you want to have a successful company, you need to put the right amount of effort and time into it. So I'm not going to say that I have a work-life balance. I'm not even really sure if I know what that is.
I don't think it exists. I don't use that term. I think it's
Right.
work-life integration. Because if you love
like
what you
that.
do, which
I
you
do
guys
too.
you're always prospecting and sourcing. And I mean, look at you guys came here to record. Somehow the conversation with the folks that are in this building ended up talking about building a project, right? Because when you care so much about what you do and you're passionate about it, you're just doing it naturally. So there's part of that. I have two teenagers. So my kids are, how old are yours?
I have a 9. They're aged 9 to 8 months.
Okay. So, wow. Okay. And your daughter is?
She's 4.
4. So I have teenagers. It's a little different now, but I love that as a business owner, they get to see the hard, the good, all of it. They hear conversations. I mean, I think Ben may have been at one of the things that we've done. He comes to lunch with me quite a bit. When I go to lunch meetings, he'll, go work on school on his own. But work-life balance, I don't think that's a thing. It's work-life integration. How do you make it all work
I
together?
really like that, actually.
Yeah, I do too.
That's very
And,
reasonable. So.
I can't tell you how many times that I've been called and my daughter's in the back and I'm driving and the first thing I say is my daughter's in the car.
Yeah.
Because we are in construction still and
Yeah.
there's things that I don't want her to hear.
Sure.
And I'm a huge believer in very disciplined on my schedule, very focused on my schedule, and I actually time block every week family time. And I think that has been what has helped me most is that so every Wednesday night is my daddy-daughter date. So I take her out and it's just her and I and it's just the focused. And then I know that I have the gift of only having one kid. And it's so much easier when I have one to focus on versus 4. Right? Yeah.
I would.
Especially
I would
8-month-old.
agree.
So yeah. But I think making sure that you're seeing those, and I don't want to say seeing them as equal, but like you're talking about your life integration, life work integration, just the ability to say, hey, if I schedule something that's important to me, I live off of my calendar.
Me too.
And,
I think at most successful people do. You can't survive without
absolutely. And so even weekends and evenings, putting in like everything that I'm that I've said yes to for my family. It helps me say no to anything else, right? So every Wednesday night, I know that unless it's an emergency, I'm saying no to whatever comes my way because that's my time with my daughter.
Darn it, I won't ask you to go to that networking event next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Right.
We'll go Thursday.
We'll go Thursday. So, and same thing with the weekends, I know there's going to be things that come up. Construction, when someone's living, especially when they're living in a project, building is its own animal, but like living in a renovation, we may be technically working on it Monday through Friday, but they're living in it from, 7 days a week. So, there's things that happen on the weekends and I want to make sure that if there's things that happen that need someone available, I don't want that to fall just on our team. So, John and I have jumped in many times on weekends and helped things out. And
it can happen like too much. Like you have to know what are truly emergent things, because we may have 15 to 20 projects going at all times. And if you only have one person or, getting all those calls, those emergency calls, that's overwhelming. He's going to end up not having family time.
Yeah.
Right.
And so training, I think, especially at this stage in our company, it's been important to train someone in that can actually handle the emergency things. So you can kind of tag team and share that on weekends sometimes.
Because you have to share load. Our director of construction has 4 daughters, 5 daughters. Yeah, he has 5. Our director of pre-construction has 4 daughters. Our other project manager has 2 sons. I mean, we're a family company,
Yeah.
as in we're not like we're a
Family-focused
family. We're a
family.
family-focused
Mhm.
company. That was and we want like we want to all of our team to spend time with their family, right? And I always joke because we're always talking about like creating processes and creating culture and all this.
Yeah.
And culture is a little bit of a passion of mine because I love people and I want us to have a really healthy company. And I had a conversation with somebody one time. They're like, well, basically they're bringing up the ideas of like, pool or ping pong tables in the office and, all these fun things. And I was like, that's great and all, but I want the company that is focused on, I don't want you to play ping pong with me. I want you to go home and play it with your
Right.
daughter. If you have,
Yes.
I hate filler work. I hate if you truly can do your job and do it up to our standard in 35 hours a week, I'm not going to make you fill in 5 hours. Like if you have time to do something here, you probably have time to go ahead and do it hang out with your kids or hang out with your wife, or husband. So we're always thinking of not just, how do we have a really good relationship with each other, but how do we honor each other's relationships with their families?
And not only honor them because you're encouraging them. And I think what you shared about, and I think you shared that with me the first time we ever met about your daddy-daughter dates. I love that. There's, such a distinct correlation between girls growing up to be strong, confident women and having a relationship with their dad. You guys got to check out my friend Dads Don't Babysit on Instagram. He's been on here. He's an awesome guy, but you'll.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I already think I like him.
Yeah, you'll love him. He's awesome. He does my Christmas lights. He's done them for like 7 years. That's how we met. But anyhow, what you just shared, I think that's so important for anyone in business that has a company that's trying to figure out how to balance it all, to hear that and think about, how do I make sure that I honor my family's commitments first? I think long gone are the days where it's like, no, just work till work till the night is done. And that's not the way that we move forward in life and protect families. So I love that. I want to talk a little bit about the dynamic between the two of you and how this came to be, but also what makes it work. Because partnerships can be very challenging, and there's none of that with you two. I'm sure you don't agree on literally everything. It's like a marriage, but you have figured it out.
And, technically we're not a partnership.
Right.
But in effect, we kind of are, because we tackle a lot of projects together, right? Despite me being the owner and founder, and for years, especially when our company was smaller, it was kind of a one-man show in terms of the management, at least. I had a couple sizable crews, of workers, but I was running the entire show, from the management perspective. And there was a point where I saw that I could not, I wanted to scale, but I could not get there from here. I could not get there from where I was with the tools I had, with the people I had on my team. And that's when, around that time I met Josh, and why I kept on insisting that he'd be a good fit in our company. Because I saw that a lot of the gifts he had for processes and implementing, more scalable systems was what I needed. As an entrepreneur, it's easy it would have been easy for me to stay stuck in what kind of worked. But I also knew that I was never going to be able to grow from there. And I think that being willing to delegate, being willing to trust him with things that I always had done, it was a challenge at first, but that's also why I'd hired him. So I expected some mistakes. I expected, and I think he made less than I had expected he would. But also being able to delegate and step away and do things that I'm good at. It really, I had a lot of, working competencies that hindered me from working in my gifts as well.
Yeah.
So.
And I say partnership, I know you're
Mhm.
not technically partners, but from the very moment that I had the first conversation I had with you, you were not involved. And it's always been, he acts like it's his company. He treats it that way. And that's what you want as the founder, right? For somebody to come in as the
Yeah.
CEO and own it like it's theirs.
And it makes me trust him,
Right.
because I'm like, hey, he owns this.
He's going to do the right
like
thing.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest gifts in our relationship is that we have the same end goal, right? Our vision is completely aligned. Now, getting to the vision may not be exactly an exact agreement, but John and I, we butt heads weekly, and and it's I think it's one of the like best ways that we can really talk through a lot of what needs to be talked through, because um, neither one of us are afraid to dig in and to really take a stance on something. We're not afraid to butt heads. We're not afraid to say what we think the other one needs to hear.
Do you fight fair when you have to?
Oh yeah, we're very respectful.
Yeah.
I think it's due to maybe something that contributes is if neither one of us have an ego,
Mhm.
and our agenda, the only agenda, is not to see who's right about something, but the agenda is what is the best approach to this? What is the best way? We try to shoot each other's ideas down.
Yeah.
And if there's no flaw to be found, then we're like, that's the path forward, right?
I feel like I need
That's the
like a mic
solution.
drop for that, because
Yeah.
that's like not just in business and relationships, period. You have to go into it like that.
Mhm.
Just not drop,
Yeah.
leave your ego at the door.
Well, we don't care who's right. We care
Mhm.
what's right,
Mhm.
and that
That's-
makes a huge difference in our relationship.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So can we go back to the beginning a little bit? Because you have a very, you have a talent and also a very extreme understanding of lots of skills and products. And a lot of that, I believe, comes from your background. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So are you speaking like specifically of like different construction related products? Or are you talking about like different like building like homes and
Both.
I think maybe your origin story.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
so-
Because I
Okay.
think about all the things that you've shared with me that you know how to do and you grew up learning
Right.
that lent you to this position of being able to say, I like tough projects. I like a project that's going to be a challenge and I want to figure it out.
Yeah. So I was born and raised Amish, and I have been building. Well, I would help my dad lay blocks at 6 years old with a wheelbarrow and a shovel, mixing mortar. And so building, my dad taught a lot of those elementary like basic skills, how to read a square and use a tape measure, and square up a building, and how to use a hammer, and like a handsaw. At the time, we didn't have any power tools growing up. And so just growing up, like building almost anything and everything. My dad built furniture and different stuff like that, and we had our own blacksmith shop. So I grew up, working in it as well, welding and bronze welding, a lot of like types of welding that is no longer even used today. And then we ended up with a tack shop at another point in my life. So I actually ran an equine and canine, products store, manufacturing most of our stuff in-house, wholesaling, as well as, retail, a lot of leather products and different things. And then, let's see, other things I did in my life. So at 9, I'm jumping back again. At 9, I started working in the local Amish like portable storage building business, and my brother was 12. He would build one right beside me, and we would race to see who would get done first. And so at 9 years old, I was building by myself with these small portable. Most of them were
Incredible.
like metal, like wood framing metal, and I would level
Amazing.
the floor system and nail everything together with big 20-pound spikes and a hammer, and using handsaws and squaring everything up, leveling everything on blocks, every building we built, and then using a level to plumb the walls and build everything up by myself. So I grew up doing that for years before I went on to, um, you know, build bigger structures. And I think having built things my entire life, having a very hands-on experience, there's very little that I haven't seen, even though I may not be that old. There's very little that I haven't seen in the building industry. And so that helped me a lot when I started my own construction company.
I would think so. Building since you were 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just incredible. I think about 6 years old doing that, but the expertise that you've developed from that time to doing what you're doing now is, unmatched. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. So you guys have built this, you started the business, you came in, you guys are doing this together. What's one piece of advice you'd say for somebody who's going to take on, so an entrepreneur, a lot of business owners, they start their business. I talk about this all the time. They get it to a certain point and then they just don't know where to go. And part of that is because they don't know who to hire or don't want to hire or don't know how to hire or don't even know that they need to hire. They just don't know what else comes. What advice can you share for them?
Can we start like even further back?
Start
like,
wherever you want.
Okay, so when you first start up your business,
Yeah, let's start.
You want to like make sure that you have certain things in place. One is you want to have a really good operating agreement. So if you are bringing anyone on, you're already set up to win from the very onset. You need a really good operating agreement and bylaws, and that needs to include an exit strategy from the very onset. So if you have all those things in place, if anything comes up and through the like early on, you already have a resolution kind of set on the front end. What's the plan of attack on something? But your question, how do you hire? How do you scale? I think a lot of that has to do with hiring. You bring the right people, and you wait to hire until you have found the right person. But if you, especially early on, if you bring the right people on your team, that's a key component of whether or not you're going to be successful in scaling. If you make a bad hire when you have 20 or 30 people on your team, it will not affect your company as much as when there's only 2 or 3 people in management in your company. So,
and I would like to, I think you have to have you have to know yourself very well as an entrepreneur or whoever's sitting in that seat supporting an entrepreneur. You have to thoroughly know your strengths and gaps. And I think one of the best ways to do that is coaching. I know you do a lot of, coaching with owners and entrepreneurs and stuff. John has a coach. I have a coach. And one of my favorite things my coach said is like, I'm not hired to be your friend. I'm hired to tell you sometimes the hard things, sometimes the good things, but what it does is a coach will make us like, I know how I operate. I know how John operates. John knows how he operates. And we're believers of, really lean into your strengths and hire your gaps. And that's going to take you further faster than probably anything else. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking at making one of your first big support hires, you have to know how you operate best before you hire that person. And then you need to know what you want that person to do. You need to have a defined roles and responsibilities of what is this person going to be? Because if it's a young company, that person's probably going to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
John and I, there's not a single thing in this company John and I haven't done. And a younger companies, that's what it's like, and then you need to scale through that. But the first thing you need to do is, okay, if it's, employee number 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that early number is, you need to know exactly what kind of role they're going to fill. That person needs to know exactly what kind of role they fill so they don't burn out. And they need to somehow complement you as the entrepreneur. So like John, I compliment him very well. Like we don't have the exact same strengths. We have some overlapping strengths. Like we both have very high discernment. But where his very high like invention and wonderment, and I'm very much enablement, sustainment, like those things, like they complement each other very well. And that's where we together can get so much more done than, your two average individuals.
Yeah. I love that you brought up know your strengths and opportunities. I've said for a long time, like, I know what I'm really good at and I know what I'm not, and I'm not going to try to do that. I'm going to just hire people that do that because I'm going to waste a lot of time trying to figure it out if I know I'm not good at something. Now, there's a difference. You have to know how to do everything when you run the business. Doesn't mean you have to do it. You just have to understand it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's next? Talk about this as for your company as you go into the new year. I know this is going to air after the new year, but there's such an exciting time coming up. What's on the horizon?
Well, we've recently actually clarified some of our roles a little bit more, and I'm moving Josh into more of a CEO role and clarifying that position as we continue to hire. So we are still growing. We still don't have every seat filled in our company. We have about 6 people in management, but with the kind of the structure that we have set up in our company, it'll take 10 to 12 people to kind of fill every seat. So I would say we're about halfway there. I would say the first 3 or 4 people that we hired in management positions, those were the hardest. Those were the hardest years, or the hardest, to kind of grow into that. And at this point, I feel a lot more confident in how we're scaling. So yeah, we're still early on in kind of our scaling of our company. So I'm really excited about 2025. Hopefully, it'll be a really strong year for construction. So we'll be signing a lot of contracts, and if so, it will also help us to make more, good hires. And we're very strategic with how we hire. I think one of our last hires, we had 80 applications, and we just want to be very careful with who we give that position, because it will really contribute to our growth a lot, especially with few people on the team like we have.
And so 2024 was a significantly slower year for a lot of people in service industries. So like less overall renovation and new builds within certain areas of Middle Tennessee. So our goal for 2025 is we like to say like chase opportunities. If we see a lot of people are doing new builds, that we're going to definitely want to jump in and do as many new builds with our clients as possible. If we see there's a trend towards renovation, we're very well set up. I think we're one of the better renovation companies in Middle Tennessee because we like the complicated, right? We love being able to like open up walls and, remove, have like nice flat ceilings and just things that other construction companies think are like, not worth it, not worth their time, or a little too complicated or stuff. Like, hey, we love that kind of stuff. So if we see a trend going towards, a lot of people are going towards that renovation market, like we're going to jump all in. We just opened up a dedicated commercial part of our company. So we've always done commercial work. It's been varied from anywhere from like 25 to 40% of our company. So we're going to be pursuing a lot more commercial work. And so, but I'm having a lot of conversations with the directors right now and saying, okay, what did we do great? What did we do good? And what did we do bad? We need to lean into our great. We need to make our good great, and we need to eliminate the bad, which means if there's something we're just not good at, we either need to hire dedicated people that are great at that already, or we just need to not do it.
Yeah.
So we're really evaluating like, what do people want next year? And that's going to be the opportunity we really jump towards.
I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited to see what happens. It is so refreshing to see just the foundation of how you guys are built, the integrity that you built as humans and then built this company on. And I say both of you, I know you're the founder. I'm not trying to take that away from you, but you do both do such a good job of running it together. For someone who is looking to go into a business of their own, so maybe it's construction, maybe it's not, but they're nervous or afraid or haven't, don't have the path to do it yet. What advice or what would you say to them?
I think evaluate, like, depending on the business, of course, but evaluate, like, do you have the necessary resources to do so? But If you do, then like putting it off another year is not going to like. I think you just need to take the leap and go for it. And some things like you're going to figure out as you go. You need to make sure that you're treating your client well through the whole learning curve of whatever business you're in. But yeah, I think expect to make a little less. If you want to take it slow enough to where that you're producing a good product and treating your clients well. And I think your reputation for the first few projects you do, or the first products you're supplying to your that's where you're going to build your reputation. So make sure those first few steps are done very, very well.
Pay attention, get
Pay
help.
attention.
Yep.
I would say if you're starting a new business, information's invaluable. So you may be the first of your genre or first of what you're doing, but creating a business is not. And having coaches, having people speak into it, finding networks, finding groups, that's going to accelerate your ability to do it right. There's so many people, like, we make mistakes all the time. But we love people and we want to be a value add to people. So we'll tell anybody what mistakes we made. Learn from other people's mistakes, because then you don't have to make them. So yeah, I would say as soon as you can hire a coach, or maybe before, hire one.
Yeah.
That's going to
hire
be,
before you can think you can do
yes,
it. Yeah.
because there's so many hard things that you're going to overcome well with a good coach.
Yeah. We didn't get to talk about this a lot, but before we go, because I know we got to get back to all the kids. We've got all these kids waiting for us, right? Mine too. I want you to just talk very briefly about your podcast and where they can find that, because you guys have a great podcast with a great message that you've been kind of sharing on how you do things right. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So it is the Right Start podcast. Currently I'm hosting it. And so what we're doing is we're exploring the complexities in the pre-construction area. So like anything from the idea of a project to a permit, we're trying to add a lot of clarity to people that want to start a new project. So we'll have guests on. So the first episode, we only have 4 episodes recorded right now. Our 4th one's going to be in January. First one was just very introductory. Second one is a little more of our story, kind of the founders episode. Third one is the GC perspective of starting a project. And then I just recorded one with Robert Workhauser from Zeitland and Sotheby's. So he's the realtor. Because I think it's important for people to understand, like, a realtor is actually a really important part of the pre-construction process, because, you can have the best architect, designer, and contractor out there, but you have to do something with something. So without land or without a home to start with, we're really just sitting in the wind. So a great realtor that understands what you're looking for, that even we can speak to, saying, hey, like, we can come outside, say, zoning says we can do this, this, and this. It doesn't work with our client. Or, hey, because the lot lays this way, you're going to have these different things, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. If it has a huge slope, well, mowing's going to be tough, but now you can have a walkout basement.
Yeah.
Right. So even having us involved to talk to a realtor could be really powerful. So all we're doing is it's an information ad. We really care about our clients. We want them to succeed, whether they use us or not. We want them to be their projects to go really well. So we're just trying to help people understand something that I don't feel is very explored.
It's not at all.
It's not. And what happens is people incur a lot of costs and then realize they can't do a project because maybe, it doesn't comp, or maybe, they've paid for all the design, all the drawings and everything, but discover later after they get GCs involved that they can't afford to build the project because maybe they don't have the funding, or so we recently had that happen where a client called us and they got pricing from 3 or 4 GCs and discovered they could not even afford to build a project. But they had already paid for all the design,
Mm-hmm.
all the design aspects of the build. So that can be a hard lesson for someone to learn. So it's really important to start right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the podcast is called,
Yep.
the Right Start Podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it needs to turn into like a book and a series and all that too. So
Yeah.
maybe in 26 or something.
Okay.
But well, I'm so glad you guys took some time out of your Friday today to be with me. You're listening to this. It might be airs on a Tuesday, but Friday while we're doing this, and it was such a pleasure to have you guys on here. Can you tell everybody where to find you?
Absolutely. So we're at StellanEoinBuilders.com. So that's StellanEoin.com. Or actually, if you go to our website, it'll have all the other ways to get a hold of us. So
it's way better than it was when you weren't involved in the website.
correct.
Yeah.
So.
That's right. And thank you so much for having us.
Oh, yes. It was very honoring.
Totally
Thank you
my
so
pleasure.
much.
You guys are on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Just search for them, Stellen Eoin, John and Josh with Stellen Eoin. Thank you for tuning in today, and thank you guys for being here.
Thank you so much.